think people, if they're picking a president, they expect that that person is able to walk around with ordinary people and seem like a regular human being.
This belongs to me.
Hundreds of people occupied the arrivals hall of Hong Kong's International Airport for the start of a 3-day rally. It's the 10th straight weekend of protests in a city that's already become collateral in the US-China trade war. And now tourism, real estate, and retail sales are plunging, pushing it into a recession. After 2 deadly shootings in Walmart stores within a week prompted demands from gun control advocates and protests by employees, the company, one of the biggest gun retailers in the US, is finally taking action. It's pulling down ads for violent video games and making sure screens aren't showing any violent content, but only temporarily. When it comes to selling guns and allowing customers to carry them in stores, Walmart says it's business as usual. Malaysia's Attorney General is charging 17 current and former Goldman Sachs directors for their alleged role in one of the world's biggest financial scandals. Goldman earned $600 million issuing bonds that raised $6.5 billion for a Malaysian development fund, which top government officials allegedly helped themselves to. Goldman says its staff was lied to and denies any wrongdoing.
What is your message to young children and teenagers who are anxious or nervous about going back to school after these mass shootings?
Well, my message to young children going back to school is go and really study hard, and someday you'll grow up and maybe be president of the United States or do something else that's fantastic.
What should we eat?
Personal favorite, fried Snickers.
Ah! What is that? How does that taste?
Oh, it's delicious.
That was pretty damn good. Fried candy bars, butter sculptures, and prize pigs.
You want out now?
Maybe. He's eating my Snickers. He's like actually biting them. Welcome once again to the Iowa State Fair.
A lot of country music, a lot of really good country music.
And meet Rob Sand, a fifth-generation Iowan and an influential Democrat in the state.
Well, where else can you see a sculpture made out of butter, right? I mean, which is why I always say, if you want to see something truly exotic, come to Iowa.
Every 4 years, this annual celebration is invaded by whoever is running for president.
Good morning. It is great to be with y'all in Des Moines at the Iowa State Fair.
The Des Moines Register puts a soapbox out, and candidates get 20 minutes to say whatever they want.
I want to talk to you this morning about what we're going to become as a nation.
This time around, with more than 20 candidates running,
there he is.
the fair is insane.
Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, Homeland Security's committees, meeting with leaders of other countries.
If these politicians are here to tuck into greasy eats and wonky policy talk with actual voters,
He said, you know, when you're talking, you start off...
they're being hemmed in by, well, a bunch of reporters.
I think people, if they're picking a president, they expect that that person is able to come to a place like this, walk around with ordinary people, and seem like a regular human being.
You're the state auditor here in Iowa, but you're texting with presidential candidates. Why do people want to talk to you?
Slightly awkward question to ask an Iowan, because if I'm going to answer that question, I have to say nice things about myself. I'm the only Democratic statewide elected official under age 65. I mean, I was the first Democrat to beat a Republican incumbent in Iowa in 34 years. They had the need to go all over the state. And I think they want to hear that advice from me, and also, as they do with anyone in the state of Iowa, if they can get an endorsement, they're interested in that too.
What he's saying in his Midwestern way is that being elected to this particular position is a super big deal here. In a place that swung hard for President Trump in 2016, Sand was able to flip the seat for the Democrats.
Thank you very much. Hello, Iowa. Good to see you all. We have to restore the soul of this country. when we saw coming out of Charlottesville that hate and that venom that we saw, and then the president saying, when asked about the groups that met him as well as the young woman when she was killed, what did he think about it? He said there were very fine people in both groups. And then the president
He started off talking about Charlottesville. Is that something that people in this crowd care about?
I think everybody cares about that. I think the idea that people in rural areas aren't concerned about racism is totally wrong-headed. The thing to think about it is that people in rural areas don't necessarily have a lot of experience with racism, right? Meanwhile, if your hometown that you're living in has a factory half a mile out of town that's been empty for 20 years, that does resonate a lot more with people.
He did talk about the economy. He talked about not giving any more tax breaks to the wealthy, and he got a pretty big cheer from this crowd when he said that.
I think it's something that middle-class Iowans care about. I think people understand that income distribution, we have more inequality now than we've ever had before, and people are feeling it.
How is it possible that $1 trillion tech company paid less in taxes than everyone here today?
The soapbox talk still feels like a stump speech, and the fair may feel like a media mess. But the value is that it's not an event organized by Democrats or Republicans or special interest groups. Anyone can show up, and candidates should be able to talk to all of them.
When you come to the Iowa Fair, you are getting every kind of person here. And so in those moments where you aren't walking around with a big scrum, then you're going to talk to totally ordinary people who are not necessarily the most tuned in on politics.
And what's the best way for these candidates to talk to those people?
It totally depends on who you're talking to. Because you don't know who you're talking to, you have no idea. There is no rule, and I think that's part of why coming here is a good test for people.
Protesters are blocking access to the summit of Hawaii's tallest mountain, Mauna Kea, dead set on stopping construction of what will be the world's most powerful telescope.
We are not going anywhere.
And the board overseeing the so-called 30-meter telescope is now considering a Plan B, applying for a license to build in the Canary Islands. But Mauna Kea is still the prize. The dormant volcano is taller than Everest when measured from the seafloor. And so remote, there's virtually no light pollution. Conditions that are perfect for checking out the atmosphere. 13 slightly less impressive observatories are already up there, run by international crews of scientists. But Indigenous Hawaiians see the peak as theirs. Their origin story says it's where a sky god and goddess created the chain of islands. And the fight over who builds what in their most sacred sites is part of a much longer battle.
I hope that people can understand that the TMT project is not just a telescope, it's not just about science, right? It's really about land and the authority of who gets to control land. In the Hawaiian context, we're dealing with the legacies of over a century of the theft of over 1.5 million acres of our land.
Hawaii was ruled by a monarch until 1893, when she was overthrown by white settlers led by the pineapple magnate Sanford Dole. 5 years later, the U.S. annexed the islands. Native Hawaiians were marginalized, culturally and economically. Today, they're still the only indigenous group in the U.S. that has no tribal rights. 2016 offered a rare window to change things. The Department of the Interior issued a rule saying that if Native Hawaiians chose to form a government, they could get federal recognition on the same level as other Native Americans. But that offer has divided Native Hawaiians, because what many really want is to be a country again.
There's a large and growing independence stream of the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, which rests upon the history of Hawaii's independence. And in that context, the lands that had been seized from the Hawaiian Kingdom in 1898 would be returned to the Hawaiian government. We are looking at, new generations of leadership in the Mauna Kea movement that have been born and raised speaking Hawaiian and living Hawaiian cultural practice. So I'm absolutely sure that there will be some expansion of Hawaiian self-governance in the coming years and generations.
Las Vegas is the city of excess, but after the party, someone's got to clean up. And in Vegas, that means throwing out mountains of uneaten food. Every year, 133 billion pounds of food in the United States are wasted. And while the EPA under Donald Trump isn't famous for caring about a lot of things, it does seem to care about dealing with food waste. It recently gave a prize for sustainable food disposal to none other than a bunch of Vegas Strip casinos. Chefs at the Mandalay Bay are cooking for a crowd of 11,000 people. If you were looking for food scraps, this is where you'd find them.
Each day we're doing between 3,000 and 5,000 pounds of vegetables that we're serving. So we're probably going through 70,000 chicken breasts. So that's a lot of chicken breasts, you know, that's 35,000 chickens.
After a banquet is over, right? About how much of that food isn't eaten that you need to figure out what to do with?
I'd say maybe around 10%-ish.
That mountain of leftovers is headed to the pig farm. It was started by veteran pig farmer and occasional gambler Bob Combs half a century ago. And it makes Vegas food disposal unique. There's just a tiny number of operations like this in the country.
So we're on top of the box now.
We're on top of the box, Hank.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of pasta over here.
Yeah, Italians were in town, I think.
Yeah, I see a sausage, which makes me feel like
Yeah,
could
breakfast
be pork,
sausage there, yeah.
Right? It's very meta.
And this is pretty clean. The type of food that we're collecting, it's basically post-consumer, right? So it's coming off the plates, and so you're gonna get the napkins, you're gonna get the silverware, you're gonna get towels, all kinds of trash, and a lot of people don't want to deal with it.
Oh, hello, girly. Come on, Mama. Yeah, come on.
Not. She's something else.
Are they getting louder because they know it's coming?
Yeah, they hear it and they get all rowdy.
So give me some examples of food stuff. So I know there's like the classic, there's lobsters, there's sausages that they like.
Yeah, steak, corn dogs, we see some of that. We found $1 in there once, but.
No way.
Yeah.
What's the most outrageous thing you guys have found in the mix?
A dildo.
No way.
Yeah.
Vegas generates so much waste that this farm is looking to expand fast. But scrap feeding isn't the most efficient solution. So MGM Resorts says it's pioneering new and more sustainable ideas, some as eccentric and over the top as the city itself.
We buy a lot of oysters. You know, MGM alone buys about 2 million oysters a year. And they're sourced from a partner that we are working with to send shells back to replenish the oyster ecosystem. Now, actually, let's put these here because now you can recycle these.
It's subject to debate just how sustainable it is to truck oysters across the country. But MGM also has an expensive, sophisticated system to blast freeze untouched food for hunger relief agency 3 Square in Nevada.
For years, we've been sending not only food scraps to Pig Farm, but also really high quality food. So what we did with 3 Square was develop a process to make sure we only collecting safe food, the right temperatures. So that food now is going to a freezer at 3 Square, and it's stored for up to 3 months. Shelters can order, like
Online, what they want.
Online, right? They can
like,
order.
we'll take this leftover pate, please. Something like that. What percentages are we talking about when we say something like that? Like, how much from a huge banquet will go to a farm, and how much will go to a charity?
the majority will go to farms still. And that's because of these very strict safety parameters.
The most efficient way to deal with food waste is not to create it in the first place, so-called source reduction. But that would mean reimagining the city. No more 25,000 square foot all-you-can-eat buffets, no more banquets for 15,000, and no more Vegas, or at least how we know it to be.
When does source reduction begin to feel like austerity?
It starts feeling like austerity when the buffets seem pretty empty and sad.
Hi there. Can you carve some meat for me, please? The entire model is predicated on the idea of having excess. But is there a world in which, like, you can safely say we want to be totally sustainable?
I don't think any company or any city or any country is ever going to be 100% sustainable in the definition I think you expressed,
Right.
which is zero food waste.
I feel bad about myself right now, guys, but, you know, here I am.
Hi, this is Lydia Night from The Regrets, and I'm here to talk about the making of our song, I Dare You.
You're gonna fall, but I'll catch you. You're gonna fall, but I'll catch you. Come on and jump, well, I dare you. Come on and jump, well, I dare you.
I Dare You was inspired by The Strokes, The Replacements, Exploding Hearts. All these bands, to me, do a really incredible job at making rock music that is still really accessible and catchy and has a hook and has a pop element without it being pop rock. The first thing that we worked on with the song was laying down a simple drum beat, simple guitar part, looping it, and figuring out melodies to go over it. Very simple. Ding, 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 ding. I wanted the song to be somewhat repetitive because I wanted people to dance to this song. After the rhythm and guitar parts and all of that was laid down, we started going into my favorite part, which is writing melodies. And I sat there with a notepad for probably like 15, 20 minutes, wrote out a verse and chorus. The verse melody is a lot choppier and it's a lot more, I call it talk singy.
But now it looks like I'm getting too close to you. My mom tries to catch me, but I know all the back streets.
The whole verse and chorus are the same chords, which is also something that is sneaky about the song, and I think a lot of poppy songs have in common, and something about that can stick. But my favorite line of the chorus is, "You're a child and it's kind of wild how you're the one that brings the sun."
The stains on your sweater, you think you know better, but you're a child and it's kind of wild how you're the one that brings the sun.
You don't know why you like this person, but you do, and you're just gonna go for it. I think that bass came in right after the melody actually was written. The synth bass comes in with these little like hits where it's like da-dun-dun, 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 and I just love da-dun-dun, how it breaks it up. It's a rebound song. I also don't think at the time I really considered what I was going through to be a rebound. And now when I listen to the song, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what you were doing.